Most people have heard that autism is a spectrum, and yet I'd be willing to wager that the average person, though obviously not everyone, when they picture someone with autism, they either think of a troubled savant like Rain Man, or maybe a kid that they're personally, or at least generally familiar with, who was very disruptive and seriously struggled in elementary school. But those types of people have what we'd call level 3 autism. If you're unfamiliar, yes, there are different levels of autism, and that's a clinically recognized thing that's also well accepted within the autistic community. Unlike saying that someone has severe autism or is only a little autistic. That is not really how it works, and many consider that kind of terminology offensive. The 3 different levels of autism are defined according to the level of support that a specific person requires. A level 3 autistic person needs a substantial amount of support and accommodations to navigate the neurotypical world, whereas someone with level 2 autism requires less, but still a moderate amount of support. Then there are autistic people that require relatively little support to successfully navigate their way through life. They tend to struggle socially as children, but often through careful study of their peers and continuous concerted effort to emulate them, these people can successfully mask and present as neurotypical. They can grow up to live very normal lives, and despite usually having significant internal struggles related to masking their natural autistic tendencies, to the outside world, it can appear as though they are as happy and well-adjusted as anyone else. They aren't identified and put into special needs classes. In fact, many even excel academically and end up on advanced educational trajectories. They often go to college, date, have meaningful romantic relationships, even end up getting married and having kids of their own. In many cases, they themselves don't even have any inkling that they're different, besides a very deep-seated and perhaps even subconscious sense that many aspects of life simply appear so much easier for everyone else when they have to expend so much mental energy to just deal with certain parts of everyday life. It's apparently becoming a more and more common experience that these people never question their own lived experience until one of their children starts exhibiting some social or emotional difficulties as toddlers or young children before they've learned to mask. And their teachers or pediatricians, who are so much more familiar with the symptomology and the breadth of the autism spectrum than we were a generation ago, suggest that perhaps the child should be screened for ASD. The unknowingly autistic parent may even push back against this notion, insisting that they had similar issues at the same age and that it's simply something you grow out of. But if they're open-minded enough to start looking into it, they soon find themselves starting a long journey of self-discovery. In case it wasn't obvious already, I am one such person. Despite having obviously lived with it for my entire life, even struggling with comorbidities such as dermatillomania, it wasn't until I was 35 years old that I seriously started looking into what autism spectrum disorder can look like outside of how it's presented in popular media. One relatively well-known neurodivergent characteristic is that many of us tend to develop autistic special interests, where we effectively become obsessed with a particular topic and can happily spend as much time as we're basically allowed to researching, cataloging, collecting, whatever the special interest involves, anything and everything that has to do with whatever topic it is that has seized our interests. Once I started learning about the actual lived experience of actually autistic people, autism itself quickly became an autistic special interest of my own. I spent countless hours watching content from actually autistic creators, sharing their experiences, and almost always resonated very deeply with a lot of what they said. I used simple screenings that I found online and then took more advanced and reputable tests and spent many months and now well over a year immersing myself completely. I joined online support groups that were open to anyone, whether they were clinically diagnosed autistic people, people that suspected they might be on the spectrum, or even just those who have no such issues themselves but just wanted to learn how to better support and accommodate their loved ones who are struggling. After spending so much time within the autistic community in this way, I've come away with a completely different view of autism than I had even a couple of years ago that is frankly quite vast in both depth and breadth. In addition to this more qualitative and experiential approach, I've also gone on an extensive deep dive into the most up-to-date scientific research, reading countless academic studies that have actually stood up to academic scrutiny, unlike the one horrifically flawed and debunked study from last century, which incorrectly suggests a correlation between autism and vaccines, and has since been proven unequivocally false by countless much more rigorous studies that included orders of magnitude more participants and resulted in the modern scientific consensus that there is no such link whatsoever. In short, the reason so many more people are being diagnosed with ASD these days is because there has been an undeniably positive renaissance beginning to take place, raising awareness about how wide and diverse the autism spectrum is. And as a result, more children are being identified at a young age, and a significant amount of those of us that slipped through the cracks during our own childhoods prior to this huge shift are beginning to self-identify and seek support as well. That is not to say that the spectrum is infinite and that everyone is a little bit autistic. That idea is becoming an unfortunate side effect of all the new awareness that can be incredibly invalidating or even hurtful to actually autistic people. However, since this awareness is still spreading and reaching new people all the time, it will inevitably result in more people coming to learn that they are on the spectrum themselves. If you think this might be the case for yourself or a loved one, please do be careful. Don't just start saying that you're autistic because you resonate with this or any other single piece of content to some extent. On the other hand, if this video were to end up reaching thousands of people, I'm relatively confident that it may spark a months or years-long journey of self-discovery for at least a few of them. From having immersed myself in the online autistic community for long enough to know, I am fully aware that if this video were to end up reaching a broader audience, there will inevitably be pushback and those commenting that there is no way that I could be autistic because they know someone that is really autistic and I'm far too well-spoken and regulated to be on the spectrum. To that, I would simply respond that it's because I am fortunate enough to be a level 1 autistic person who has had decades of practice at hiding my struggles and presenting a neurotypical mask to the outside world. Rest assured, if my childhood bully were to walk down this path right now, I would have a full-on autistic meltdown, and will probably even have a more minor one after I stop recording this because of how difficult it is for me to talk to anyone besides my wife or my therapist about this kind of thing. Frankly, it's quite dysregulating to talk to even them about it, and I know I still have a long way to go in my own journey of self-discovery and acceptance. That said, if this has sparked anything within you and you want to know more about my experience, I'd be happy to answer any questions in the comments. And if you're so inclined, you can read the first several chapters of a novel that I've been writing to try and process all of this over the last year or so. There's a link to that in the video description and the pinned comment below. Otherwise, the only other piece of content that I've created on the subject is this video here that I originally made to share with my loved ones to let them know the truth about myself. I think it's a pretty eye-opening look into what a late-diagnosed, high-masking autistic adult looks like on the very rare occasion that we allow ourselves to fully unmask. Otherwise, my main piece of advice would simply be to start engaging with content from other autistic creators that have already put far more time and effort into making helpful resources along these lines. My personal favorite is Mom on the Spectrum. Whatever your journey ends up looking like, I wish you well and ask only that you treat others with kindness and grace.